Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. A big welcome back to our channel, where today we're diving into the hilarious chaos of Karen culture, the peculiar phenomenon where some people seem to think the world revolves around their whims. Get ready for jaw-dropping moments, wild tantrums, and unforgettable encounters that remind us all that cameras never lie. In today's episode, we've got Karens throwing tantrums, attacking people, getting arrested, and one OP tells a story about the time a Karen tried to ruin their life for not obeying her orders. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So, last week or so, I was doing a supply run at the local Costco for our food truck. I still had my hat and hair on since I was returning to the truck with a rather small haul. It was a busy day in Costco, and I picked what turned out to be the slowest line. Something was up with the cash register, and there were 3 employees standing around it trying to figure out something. Now, instead of standing there and watching and waiting, I decided to grab a hot dog and a soda. The food court was relatively empty as it was nowhere near lunchtime, and it literally takes about 3 to 4 minutes. I made it back in time, and not even a minute later, the employees figured out the problem, and the customer at the till paid and walked off. I'm behind the next person in line, who's now getting their items scanned, and that's when the lady who's behind where I left my cart for less than 5 minutes starts going off and says, "Hey, do you work here? Why would you go off like that and leave your cart in line?" Hearing her say that, I sort of shrug it off. She then throws in, "It must be nice to have all the time in the world to do whatever you want." Now, I thought she must have been joking, surely, and I just missed it, so I tried to joke back and say, "I'm sure you could go grab a hot dog too. This is probably the slowest line in here." Now, humor was apparently the exact wrong response, because the woman immediately gets irate, and she spits out, "Does your supervisor know you're holding up the line? What kind of unprofessional a-hole just wanders off and leaves their cart sitting in line?" At this point, I look at this lady like she's speaking ancient Egyptian. The line hasn't even moved in the time it took me to hit the food court and come back. There was still a person with a full cart in front of me who had just finished loading all of their items onto the checkout belt. Finally, I hit Karen with a "No, I don't work here, lady," to which she flippantly replies, "Of course not. The employees here aren't a-holes who would do such stupid, thoughtless things and hold up the line for their own selfishness." By now, the cashier started to take notice, as well as the bagger, since watching the lady making a scene is probably more entertaining than yet another old person counting out exact change. I'm still dumbfounded, thinking, is the lady dense? The line hasn't moved at all, but before I could point that fact out to her, the woman unloads with, "Where do you work? I want you to tell me where you work so I can tell your boss how much of an a-hole you are in public. Whoever you work for, you're making them look bad." And I'm just thinking to myself, what the F? The woman's BS continues, and I try to ignore it, but it's been nearly half an hour of this crap as we wait to be checked out. I only have 2 large items in the cart, so it's a quick scan and a card to pay. Not even 3 minutes. But she crowns off with, "Why would you do such an a-hole thing, huh? Why do you do such inconsiderate things?" Now, this BS has been going on so long that I've basically had time to think up the perfect clapback, so why not? That's when I lean over the front of her cart, gripping it tightly. I then put the most a-hole look on my face that I could twist up and say, "Just to ruin your day, Karen, I got out of bed today, and I was just waiting for an opportunity to make you in particular miserable." Before she can process that, I grab my cart and start rolling off, watching her go beet red in the face with pure rage. I basically said exactly what that kind of person feels. I confirmed, without a hint of sarcasm in my tone, that my goal in life was to make her miserable. But I guess being right didn't satisfy her like she wanted. The cashier and the person who boxes things for people looked like they were both holding back laughter as I look over my shoulder to watch her silent meltdown. As soon as I paid and was walking off, the woman had to get the last word in. She shouts, "I hope you have a good life being an a-hole." To which I respond with, "I hope you have a good life being a Karen." I then rolled off like a smug jerk, knowing I'd probably be living rent-free in that woman's head for a good while. As someone who works in food service, it was super cathartic to get a clapback consequence-free. Yeah, I bet that woman wasn't expecting a response like that. And I agree, what Opie said was probably eating her up inside for the longest time. And I get it, guys. I'd be one to speak up too if someone left the line up for 5 minutes to get a hot dog if the line was moving. But it wasn't like the cash was being held up by something going on. So, Opie popping up to get a hot dog was no big deal in my opinion. That Karen must have been looking for a fight that day, and she clearly picked the wrong person to mess with. So, here's a bit of background to this utter fluke of circumstances. About a year ago, I wanted to leave my town for a chance at a better job, and I moved in with my grandpa, who's 86 years old, whom I'll call Pawpaw. He's a really chill guy with a wicked sense of humor, and he also doesn't take crap from anyone. When we're together, we become a couple of goofs, and Pawpaw has also lost his filter, as you'll soon find out. The guy says anything that comes to mind out loud. He's done giving any sort of Fs. He's been cool with me staying rent-free until I find a full-time job. That being said, we make a serious grocery run once a month to stock up. It's not a one-stop shop, so we do end up taking a good chunk of Sunday to get everything, and we always end up stopping by Wally World. On this particular day, though, I had just come back from a job interview, so I was dressed in nice shoes, my best blue jeans, and a blue dress shirt. You can probably guess where this is going to go. So, me and Paw get to Wally World, and we start shopping. As we stock up on instant ramen and yakisoba, he and I aren't talking much, shopping like a well-oiled machine. We both know what the house needs and our budget. After a while, I can hear footsteps approaching from behind, so I step back a bit further from the center of the aisle, so whoever it is can pass. When they get close, I stop in front of Paw's buggy to let whoever it is pass, and that's when I feel it, the arm grab. My instinct is to turn away and jolt my hand upwards, as I hate being touched by random strangers. What I see is a frail-looking woman in her 80s looking at me in shock, as she probably didn't expect her arm to be jolted. Instantly trying to lighten the mood, me being a wisecrack, I say to her, "Oh, probably not your best idea ever, huh?" The woman's not laughing, though. She narrows her eyes at me, and with her cheeks and lips sagging like an English bulldog, she grumps at me and says, "Excuse me?" "You are excused," I reply out of habit, gesturing that she's free to get by us. And no, I wasn't oblivious to her temper. I was just ignoring it so we could all move on with our day. Apparently, she doesn't appreciate my efforts, and that's when she smacks me on the arm. Off to my right, I can hear my Pawpaw go, "Hey now, don't you go doing that. He's a young one. We can't compete." He goes ignored as the old lady says, "Is that any way to treat a young lady?" I reply, "I don't know." And that's when Pawpaw chimes in with, "If he sees one, he'll be sure to ask." That's when I let out a chuckle, and the woman's jaw fell open at that, and she actually kicked me just below the knee that I actually felt, and I scowled at her, saying, "Geez, lady, can you stop touching and hitting me?" That's when the woman says, "You are very rude. Where's your manager?" At this, I blink a few times and I actually smile as it clicks what's happening. She thinks I work here. That's when Pawpaw responds, "The manager is in Tahiti. Maybe the guy has a timeshare there. He won't be back for a while." The woman huffs and rolls her eyes, telling Pawpaw to stop talking to her, as he's not a part of this. She then says to me, "What's your name? Give me your name and a number to report you." I try to cut in to explain by saying, "Ma'am." She then interrupts me and hollers, "Name and number." Now, it's my turn with the jokes. I put my hand to my chest and I tell her, "Oh, but ma'am, this is so improper. I'll have you know that my girlfriend doesn't like me giving out my number to other women." The woman stares at me for a bit before an actual employee catches her down the aisle. She screams at him and says, "You come here." I look and I see he's headed our way. That's when Pawpaw smirks and he says out loud, "No, don't come over here. She's crazy. Run away, run away." The employee endures a few seconds of her chastising him. He then looks at me and tells her, "It doesn't work here." Spotting a chance, I loudly and sarcastically say over the lady's retort after spotting his name tag, "Oh, come on, Jimmy, don't tell me you forgot me. I just started." My Pawpaw then bursts out in the wheezing cough that passes for his laughter. The old lady seems to be catching on by this point, and so I'm ignored while she focuses on the employee as Pawpaw and I make our escape. He looks at me and says, "Kid, that encounter was crazy. We finish our shopping and then head home. Crazy it was indeed, guys, and I bet that Karen didn't anticipate getting into it with a couple of jokesters and getting embarrassed like that. Also, probably not a good idea for that old lady to go around grabbing people's arms and kicking them in the shins. Like, that's just asking for trouble. That said, though, OP's grandpa with his quick wit at 86 years old is pretty impressive, guys. Better than what I could have done. Definitely the fun grandpa. So, this happened to me about 5 years ago. I just turned 22 years old. I was invited to a wedding in Baltimore in December of 2020. So, as we're wrapping up dinner, getting ready for the long night of dancing, I get a call from my boyfriend at the time. I excused myself from the party and went down the elevator to the lobby. That's when I encountered Karen while I was on the phone with my boyfriend. Here's a side note. I was in a blue dress shirt and khaki pants. This is important. Karen says, "Sir, do you know where this restaurant is?" I replied, "No, I'm sorry." I can see her getting a bit confused, and she says, "What do you mean?" I asked where this restaurant is. I reply, and I said I don't know. Now, the amount of alcohol on this woman's breath was suffocating. She then goes on and says, "Sir, I'm asking you, where is it?" I then interrupted her, finally cracking, and said, "Lady, I don't work here." She then says, "Yes, you do. I need your manager right now, or I'm calling the cops." Clearly, the woman's very drunk, and I tell her, "Go for it. I don't know what the cops are going to do for you. They're probably going to be on my side because clearly I don't look like I work at this hotel." Well, she got so mad at that moment that out of nowhere I felt a loud smack on the side of my head, immediately followed by the sound of my ears ringing, and she said, "That's what you get for not behaving like a real man should." All the while, she's still going on a drunken rant. I say, "What the F? Why did you?" And that's when an officer comes in and says, "Why did you hit him, ma'am?" We saw everything. Karen's just about to go on a rant about how I disrespected her, blah, blah, blah. That's when the officer goes on his radio and calls for backup. Literally, 2 minutes later, 3 officers show up. That's when I tell them, "I'm a part of a wedding that's going on upstairs. Can I go?" One officer asked, "Could you stay for a statement about what happened?" I respond, "I don't need to. There's a camera right there." I then give the officer a mischievous grin, and without saying a word, I point to the camera. The officer looks to where I'm pointing, and folks, the look on this officer's face was priceless. He then went to the concierge desk near the elevator and asked for the manager to take the footage from the CCTV, and it showed everything. So, to wrap it up, they asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said, heck yeah. In the end, the woman was charged with assault on myself and a peace officer, resisting arrest, and public intoxication. Oh boy, the only thing worse than a Karen is a drunk Karen who's filled with liquid courage. Am I right? And guys, I can totally see something like this happening, especially when alcohol is involved. My question is, do you think she regretted it when she sobered up? So here's some background. I'm a plumber, and I'm only 18 years old. I went to a trade school for high school and came out with a full-time job as an apprentice. This happened about 5 months ago, and it still has me effed up. Ever since, I was working in a 4-story building inside the city, and there's only one elevator, which we weren't allowed to use because of the companies that worked in the building itself, and then only one spiral square staircase, which is needed for later. My journeyman and I were wrapping up our day, and we were packing up everything. As the younger guy, I was sweeping and taking the loads back down to the truck to get ready to leave. On one of my last trips, I was only taking a trash bag and a few of the hand tools I hadn't grabbed yet. I'm in my normal work clothes, but my boss isn't strict about wearing company clothing, so I'm only wearing my Dickies pants and a beat-up sweatshirt with no labels. I start walking down the stairs with a trash bag from the 4th to the bottom when a worker from the 3rd floor walks out with a trash bag. I briefly walk past, just finishing my day, when the woman scoffs at me. Me being the kid I am, I turn around and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Didn't mean to bump into you." And I continued down, and that's when she said, "Here, take this. I have a call I need to get on." I replied, and I said I was sorry that I didn't work for the building, and it's not my job to take it. She then exclaims, "You're dressed as a janitor. My son is one too, and you dress just like him. He has the same tools on him all day." I try to tell her that I didn't, and that I'm a plumber working above her on the fourth. In retrospect, yes, I could have taken it, but the woman was being really rude and condescending, so I didn't. It's at this point I started to get annoyed, but I just remembered that I need to take breaths and walk away. I started going down the stairs when she grabbed the back of my hoodie and yanked it. I spun around like, what the heck? And that's when she slams the bag into my stomach, sending me tumbling down the stairs. This is when one of her coworkers comes out because of the commotion, and she starts fake crying, saying I was trying to grab her in the stairwell and assault her, that she shoved me down the stairs in an attempt to save herself. I tried to say something getting up, but the guy was on the phone with the cops already, and he took her away to calm her down. I started getting so mad at this woman, but that's when my coworker came to me, and he said everything would be fine. This is when the biggest blessing ever occurred. My buddy loves to mess with me. The guy would take videos of me working or being oblivious, and he would throw coins at me to be funny or dump water on me as a joke to lighten up the day a bit. Well, he recorded the interaction, and the lady never knew he was there. By the time he made sure I was all right, the cops were there about 10 minutes after the whole thing went down. They started to talk to the woman, and they take her side of things first. They start questioning me in the stairwell, and my buddy said he witnessed it and had a video. He showed the video to the cop, everything that happened from the moment I began down the stairs and past the lady to the point of her shoving me down the stairs. He then talks to her, and from the second he said there was a video, she turns ghost white. They took her downstairs to the cruiser, and the cop comes back to me, asking if I need assistance or an ambulance, as I had a gash on my elbow when I stumbled down, but I was totally fine, though just in complete shock. He also asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said I would. In the following time since this happened, I've taken her to court, and she's been charged, and she's serving time for assault and battery. Another thing I don't recall that's important to know is that I'm now realizing that there were no cameras in the stairwell. I would have been screwed. It was a huge reality check for myself. It could have ruined my life, to be quite honest. Luckily, my buddy was there, and ever since then, I've never complained once about him messing around with me. Being 5 months later, I still feel uneasy thinking about it. Just the fact that it can get really scary with accusations like that. Effing psycho Karens, I tell you. Like how it went from take out this garbage bag to her pushing OP down the stairs to accusing him of grabbing and trying to assault her is freaking wild. Like, I can't even comprehend why she would say something so drastic to try to ruin a complete stranger. And again, over a garbage bag. I'm glad Opie took the fight to court, and that woman is serving some time behind bars because maybe, just maybe, she'll learn a lesson from this. I listened to your stories all day, and I only just remembered one of my own I don't work here lady stories. So, I work at a women's shelter in a very small town. Women and children stay when they need to. We have a small secondhand clothing store, and we help women and families set up when they move into a new house. We help with the transports, food parcels, etc. Basically, we're the go-to if anyone needs help. It's also worth noting at this point that when this happened, I've been doing admin every morning and helping with the morning rush as we open our doors for women to come in. I had not worked nights or on call for about 2 years at this point, with the exception of very rarely being called in to help if we had a new staff member doing a night and they were struggling but still never stayed the night and never covered the on-call phone. At the time of the story, my partner was away at work. Now, even when I was working nights, I've always drawn a hard line at people coming to my house. I don't like people. I worked with people because there wasn't much else available, and I enjoy helping out the kids and showing them that there was a better way to live and encouraging them to aim for that rather than follow the path that the majority of their family took. I have never once encouraged any women to come to my house for anything and very firmly turn them away if I catch them approaching my house. If a kid knocks on my door and he wants a drink and snack, I help them out, but not the adults. To be honest, I'm slightly disgusted at most of the adults in this town for pissing away their money and leaving their kids to scavenge for food and weather-appropriate clothing. The amount of times that I've seen drunk adults sitting around a campfire with thick coats and jackets while their kids are kicked away to play, shivering and barefoot in shorts and a tank top, is enough to turn anyone's stomach. That all said, I was bundled up on the couch watching TV before being distracted by the raging arguments going on across the road. In a small town like this, we have drunk screaming fights in the streets every night. It's actually odd if you don't hear at least one person acting like a fool outside of your house between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. This night, I was expecting a bad one because the house diagonally across from mine had a mob drinking in the front yard from about lunchtime. Comes to about 7 p.m., and the screaming and arguing started. I texted the on-call phone a heads up that they would likely get a few calls that night. It gets to be about 11 p.m., and that's when I hear wailing approaching my house. Not a siren, but a woman crying because her man dumped out her beer. I'm just sitting on the couch, sending out mental signals. Don't effing do it. Don't you dare come to my door. The next thing I know, she's at the effing door, and I think to myself, don't you do it. Don't you knock. The woman doesn't knock. She's literally banging on the door for a good 20 seconds. My dogs are going mental. They're about as social as I am, and they hate people coming to the door at night when my partner's awake. I went to the door, but I didn't open it. I asked who it was and what they wanted. The drunk lady is demanding I call my work and tell them to come pick her up. I laughed a little because this woman's a regular, and she knows that she ain't going in because she's drunk. B, she hasn't been assaulted or threatened. In fact, she's actually been the aggressor all evening, and C, we don't pick up people after dark ever. And here's the thing. I've told her not to come to my house multiple times. I just sighed a little at the knowledge that she wouldn't just accept her fate and move along. She was definitely going to argue and whine and beg, all sprinkled with some abuse and a good amount of slurring. I'm glad the door is shut because I know for a fact that she probably reeks of beer, and I know if the door was open, I would be a lot shorter with her, and my eyes would be watering. So, for 15 minutes, she was there, and I was saying the same thing for 15 minutes before I got angry and blew up at her. I told her, hey, you shouldn't even be at my house. You know you can't go to the center because you're drunk. If you feel unsafe, you need to call the police. Rinse and repeat, and repeat and repeat. You get the idea. I finally had enough, and I thought, you know what? I don't even care if she complains at work. I'm not on the clock right now, and I'm not getting paid for this, and my feet hurt. So I yell through the door, get the F off my property before I call the cops. It's not my fault you're too drunk and dense to understand the same sentence you've heard nearly 100 times in the last 10 minutes. I then tell her, you have to count to 3 to be effing gone before I let my dog out and call the police. The whole time she's whining and trying to change my mind, so I bellowed out 1. There was a pause, and she starts to plead some more, and that's when I say 2. There's a longer pause, and I can almost hear the gears in her brain sluggishly turning. She's leaning on my front door at this point. I can hear her intake a breath as she starts to say, but you have to do something. I then count out 3, and I slam open the deadbolt, and I can hear the satisfying pitter-patter of her running the FOA. I waited about 5 minutes to see if she understood that I meant it, and then I sat back down in my heated blanket nest and finished my movie. And that, my friends, wraps up another wild ride of a story. I hope today's tales brought a smile to your face, a shake to your head, or maybe even a good laugh. If you had fun, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already joined our amazing community, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more crazy, jaw-dropping stories. You won't want to miss what's coming next.